Welcome to the Stacey Salyer Show, the podcast for property management leaders ready to think bigger about growth. I'm Stacey Salyer, and the only acquisition strategist in this industry who sat on all sides of the M&A table. I've been the buyer, acquiring a 370-door competitor during COVID using seller financing. I've been the seller, building and exiting a 7-figure business. And I've been the corporate evaluator as director of acquisitions, assessing over hundreds of companies nationally. That means I know exactly what you're thinking, what you're missing, and what actually works when it comes to buying and integrating in this space. On this show, we dig into acquisitions as a real business tool, not luck, not someday. You'll learn positioning, strategy, numbers, and integration from someone who's actually done it all. Let's go. Welcome back, my friends, to the Stacey Salyer Show, where we talk about buying and selling property management companies. And today I have a very special guest with an amazing first name that I had to practice saying over and over, Guillermo Salazar. And I am super excited to have this conversation today because we are going to dive deep into acquisitions. We're going to talk about PE funds, VC backing, what it looks like to set up your company, to get it to sell, what it looks like to buy companies, and of course, the all favorite topic of 2026, AI, mingled and sprinkled in there. So welcome so much to my show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love the conversation you're talking about. I think that the permission for the conversation about what your exit looks like is so important. And what your growth plan looks like is so important. And the beauty of property management is that there is, you have to be managing both sides of the funnel all the time, and being aware of that potential. Given that there's no 401k for a property manager, you've got to create your business, and that's worth something. And knowing how that's going to be acquired, and it gives you clarity on the things you shouldn't be doing and the things you should be doing with respect to your day-to-day operations. Because ultimately, I think the thing that, as all entrepreneurs, we get caught thinking about getting caught in a job versus getting caught in a business. And so how can we begin to structure the organization, structure the way we do things, so that you're recognizing that it is a job to start out with, but ultimately you're not in this to create a job for yourself. Well, for many people, you're not in this to create a job for yourself, you're in this to create a business. And a business is different. Like I said this like 1,000 times, businesses are not babies, right? They're two different things.
Yes.
And
yes.
Right? And if you grow a business and you understand how to grow a business and how to sell a business and how to acquire businesses, then like you can begin to start creating a system around that. And that is where, we get opportunities to create wealth moments in our life around both the acquisition on the path to an exit and then the exit. And there's no greater opportunity in a person's income generating career than an exit to move the needle on your wealth creation.
Yes. Well, you just said a ton of things that warm my heart, which your business is not your baby. And hey, I was there. I actually used to call it my fourth child. I know I wrote about that recently, and I think I was on your show recently, and I talked a little bit about that. But that's actually not a healthy way to grow your business. And once I realized that, and I realized, oh, wow, this is actually a huge asset that I'm building, it completely changed my life. And so that's one piece of it. I feel, I have been in property management for well over 20 years. I know you're newer into property management, so I'd love to kind of get your take on what that looks like for you compared to where you've been before. But I feel like it's kind of in the PM world, we've kind of shifted into that. Forever and ever, it seems like a lot of people just kind of started a property management company to kind of service their clients that they had in their real estate firm, or maybe they just wanted to manage their own stuff and they did it at scale. But there's this whole new wave of, hey, let's build an asset, and then let's, then utilize that asset for additional things in your life. So do you mind sharing maybe a little bit kind of where you've come from, and maybe we can dive deeper into, maybe some PE funds, VC back, the difference and all that kind of good stuff. And then we'll kind of more go granular into
For sure. Management. So my background, I've been an entrepreneur. I say this is like a therapy session, but I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, unknowing. I didn't admit to it till about last year, until someone almost smacked me in the head and said, no, you are an entrepreneur. I've started 4 companies. I've exited 4 times. I have also had a bunch of side gigs all along the way. I help people starting companies get their first revenue as a little consulting business because I just love helping people, and it gives me a ton of energy. Along the way, I found that I've worked in a couple different models. I ran a consulting company, so all services. I started that company in '09. We exited that to Deloitte in 13. Grew that company from 4 consultants to 65 consultants in 4 years. It was
Wow.
exhausting. It killed me. It killed all of my partners. And we had a healthy exit, and especially given what the time was. And then I worked for that company for like 3.5 years. That was a change for me from respect to where we were going and what was happening then. Along the way, I've started a product company, and at one point in time, it was the fastest growing hockey business in the world. Certainly the most profitable for a while there, and that was interesting in terms of growth of that business. And then started a technology company. This is my second technology company that I'm working with right now at Vendoroo, and I'm working as a principal there. I'm not a founder, and previous to that I was founder at IRCX. So all those different kind of stages worked with, and then along the way, like the product company dealt with private equity a lot in terms of exiting from that business, dealt with private equity buyers, and along the way, kind of like just different sort of acquirers and what they're trying to solve for. And understanding what the people are trying to solve for can often be the most important thing when you're seeking to maximize your multiple and your returns and how they buy, right? So a services business, they're going to buy based on top line revenue of your employees, not necessarily of your subcontractors. They're going to net out your subcontractor revenue to give you a multiple. A product company, they're going to multiple that based on your EBITDA. And then in a software company, you're going to get multiple based on revenue growth, and account retention. So all different sort of multiples in terms of how things are measured. And along the way, I've had private equity capital involved. I've had VC capital involved. And understanding how they play the game, what they're trying to solve for, is important with respect to how you're going to position your business. In all cases, like what I've become really kind of tuned for is looking how to run an acquired company or how to acquire other companies. Having started these companies and gone through the cycle of the job part and forgetting that this is, there's a reason for this, not just about the job, then that helped me also restructure kind of my operations and my actions and my duties in terms of what I'm trying to do in terms of setting up systems. Because like the thing that is never going to be wrong is that we do fall to the level of our systems versus the aspirations of our goals. And so like you can set goals all day long, but a goal without strategy, my word of the day is hopium. If you just like planning things, hopium. If you are planning out goals and not setting out a strategy, that is hopium. And hopium is very addictive and it can ruin your life. And so I would recommend that if you find yourself in a hopium state, figure out as fast as you can to get your way out of that and acknowledge it. Because the first part is acknowledging that situation. It's just like an addiction. I mean, you get caught up in your dreams, not in the reality. And that's where you find yourself in a job. And for those that are property managers, you may have taken this on as a means of making personal income, but as you begin to understand what's possible, you're going to find that the greatest possible wealth creating moment in your life can be when you exit that company, but you got to exit it right. And that takes a lot of structure, practice, discipline, because the company worth buying is a company that the owner or the founder is not in day-to-day operations. That's where you're buying a series of assets and systems that can, create value for the acquirer. And to the whole thing about business and babies, like you're not a parent either, right?
Right.
And so if you think yourself as a parent in that situation, you're going to probably make things a little bit more casual, a little bit less built to buy than if you were structuring it as an asset.
Right. Wow. Okay, that is a lot to unpack. So
Yeah.
first, hopium. I love that word.
Hopium.
That is amazing. Yeah, you should copyright that or whatever.
I stole it from
Trademark that
somebody else.
part.
I stole it from somebody else.
You did. Okay. Well, we'll give credit to whoever that somebody is. So tell me, what would that look like in the day-to-day? Maybe kind of in the property management world.
I think,
what would that
hopium,
look like?
And you talk about it quite a lot, right? Hopium is I'm going to go door to door and grow the business that way, right? You can grow part of your business that way, and that's important to kind of understand how that works. But ultimately, if you're not thinking about how that business is going to scale and how you're going to, what that means, because like there's a point in time where the door to door is what you got to do at that stage. And so I think that thinking about your business in stages and what that means in terms of how you're going to get to where you got to go. So I like to talk about laddering up, because it's hopium is thinking that you're going to go to 100,000 doors and you're like 1,000 doors right now, and not having an understanding of how you're going to get there.
Right.
So that's hopium. A laddering up or a strategy is putting things on paper that you can begin to test. And I'm a big fan of the thinking of like, it's a hypothesis statement. Every plan is a hypothesis statement. And putting out that hypothesis statement, it's like a scientific experiment, like you learn this in grade 4. These are things that I think to be true. Here's the things that I'm going to do. Here's the things that need to be true for this hypothesis to be true, right? And then I'm going to repeat it, or I'm going to learn from it. Practically speaking, you're going to learn from it. And then you're going to learn, and then you're going to learn. Because if you're just thinking about door to door, then you're usually thinking about just competing with other people.
Right.
It is really hard to grow your business.
Bottom. Yeah.
And it's a race to the bottom.
Yep.
Because you can't compete on like the 3 different ways of competing, generally speaking, is like on price, on customer intimacy, or on product innovation. And price is the most expensive way to compete. And if you're going door to door, you're often going to find you're competing on price. Not only are you spending a lot of time and energy and effort in that cost of acquisition, because your cost of sales is high because you're doing door to door, but then you're also like, your reward for that hard work is a price-based competition, which is like really expensive way, and I use this word all the time, to spend your time on earth. Your time on earth, really think about how you can create value for other people, and then how you can ultimately find new ways to create more value. Because if you can be more effective and efficient with your time as an entrepreneur, as a property manager, as an owner of an asset, you're going to find, it is inevitable, you're going to find new opportunities. They're going to come to you because you will just attract them because you have the headspace for them. And those new opportunities are going to help you see a new path forward. And you'll just be constantly reinventing yourself, which is really exciting because that every time you reinvent something, you're usually leaning into where there's some value to be created that you can get. I call it an unfair advantage or an unfair win. An unfair meaning you're getting more than you deserved, and you're getting more than you deserve at a price that maybe you don't qualify for. And that's good stuff, right? Keep that going, because otherwise it can be a bit of a grind.
Right, right. Well, and I know when I was on your show, we talked a lot about that, like the identity and, moving into new identities and giving yourself permission to accept those new identities. I think sometimes we'll go to conferences and I'll hear kind of almost like negative things. Even when I sold to Pure Property Management, I actually, people were kind of rude to me. Not everybody, but some people were like, oh, you sold out or you did this or that. And I'm like, well, actually I made some really strategic moves, but and if you'd like to have a conversation about that, we could definitely talk about it. Yeah. But, kind of thinking beyond, just like the day to day. And then the door to door growth is a killer. I mean, it's a killer on your team. It's a killer on yourself. It's super stressful, right? So let's say you're like, oh, my goal is to add, I don't do math in my head, but let's say 60 doors for the year. I mean, you're continually having this mental grind of, oh my gosh, I have 3 clients that are leaving because they're selling. And now to get to net 60, I have to grind even more. And it's interesting because in property management, we hear a lot of like, well, it's not very expensive to grow that way because I'm not spending any marketing dollars. Mm-hmm. But what kind of dollars are you spending for yourself, right? Like on yourself. Like how stressful is that? Like all that stress that's compounding, plus then you have the operations piece of it and everything. And I don't think enough people have really stopped to think about that. They just think, oh, well, that's just kind of how we've always done it. But what if you can shift your mindset and step into that identity of also being an acquirer and go out into your market and 10x it, right? So,
well, I think that's the thing that and I fall in this trap all the time, is that just because I can do it doesn't mean I should do it. And I'll give you an example. I try and make sure that I'm doing things like this podcast or other podcasts to try and attract, leads and attract, revenue generation. And that's the balance and the trade-off. I still do direct outbound. I still reach out to people one-on-one, but I try and do it very deliberately and directively because I know I still have to do that skill. But ultimately, I'm not going to spend 8 hours of my day doing direct outbound because that's a very poor usage of my time. Now, one of the things that I love, like if everyone listening to where the Hopium idea was stolen from, was a guy named Dan Martell who writes a book called Buy Back Your Time. And I really recommend anyone read that book. And if you don't read the book, here's the punchline. Figure out the cost of what your salary is, all right? And then figure out the cost of a task. And if you don't know what the cost of a task is, then you're already giving your time away for free. And so if you figure out the cost of a task, let's say it's like sending emails out or responding to emails, and let's just use a number of 100K. So it takes 15 minutes per email. So then you can do the math and figure out what that email cost you, your company, et cetera. And if you consider what a VA could cost to do that, let's go $5 an hour. So if I take 100 grand and I divide that by 2,000 hours, that's going to tell me what my hourly rate is. And that's about $50. If I'm spending $50 for $10 work or $5 work, or actually if you think of a VA, you can get VAs for $6, $7 in the Philippines. If I'm spending $50 for $2 work, how long is that going to last in your business? How long is that going to get you? How far is that going to go? And so the goal is to figure out what's the cost of my time. Martel talks about this quite a bit. And so if you think about as the leader of your company, if you're running $1 million property management company, what's the value of your time? And thinking about and being really critical about your time will force you to do two things. This is the part that really flipped for me, is if you start thinking about the value of your time and then you go and act on it, you're going to realize your systems are totally destroyed. They're all like, everything is random. Everything's playground football. There's no set plays, no set playbooks. It's, Stacey, you're the bottle cap. We're going to go this way to the dirt line, you know, whatever. It's like that. And that is not a way to run a business. That's living in chaos. And living in chaos is not a happy place to be, and it's not worth buying. Even if you have a great assets, nobody will go near that business, that chaotic business with a 10-foot pole, because it would take too much time, energy, and effort to integrate.
Right.
And so they're going to go and undo all the damage that you're kind of doing all the time. It's kind of funny, you talk to folks that do a lot of work with entrepreneurs, and is that, and this I would look for this if you're a property manager or a leader or an owner, look for your behavior. If you find that things are going really well and smooth, but you find yourself starting to be a saboteur to your own business because it creates more attention about the things that you think you're really good at, just that's like a get help moment where you should be talking to Stacey about, I need to change the way I'm doing things, because you'll find that you're just destroying your value of your business. You're destroying the relationships of your family and your friends, and that you need to start allocating your time in a way that creates a higher value outcome. And I know that sounds so obvious, but I really do encourage everyone to take the amount of money they would like to make this year, divide it by 2,000, figure out what that number is per hour, and figure out what the price is to get someone else to do that work. And you'll find real quick that I'm doing $5 an hour work. I'm robbing from my company. I'm robbing from my investors, and I'm robbing from my family. And I use that word robbing intentionally because you're being really selfish with your time to do something that's a distraction rather than doing the hard, heavy lifting work. And so that's something that I just cannot unlearn, is the value of my time and the value of the work that I'm doing. And then how can I begin to allocate that in a way that makes for better outcomes for everybody who's invested in me, family, friends, customers, employees.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, so I call that fiddling. I am a huge fiddler. I will dive into my business. I will change things. It seems like on a whim, but I have a strategic plan in my mind. In fact, I did that with my property management company. Things were running great. We had amazing systems, processes, teams, all the things. Things were automated. And what happened was it was running really well. And so then, the tornado, that would be me, comes in and this gets into the system, and it's like, start pinging people. Oh, did you do this? Oh, I wasn't letting the system work. I was like being a tornado, and I was causing chaos. And my team, thank goodness, they had enough, they knew me well enough that they knew that they could come tell me and say, hey, I don't think you realize, but you are actually creating chaos. You are ruining what we've built, and you're actually giving anxiety to the team. Yeah. And that was like I was smacked up again, the head. Somebody did that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad. I literally was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I've undermined all of you and your ability. And so I said, okay. And I signed out of everything, and I was like, no, we're just going to let the system run. And I'm very thankful that my team did that. And I'm very thankful that we had a really good team that felt like they could tell me that. And then, we went on and grew. And then I realized for myself, okay, that's fine to be a fiddler. It's okay, because a true entrepreneur, I think, is. We're always like, oh, let's create this, let's do that. But then I was like, oh, well, obviously I just need to have other projects and take the fiddle over there and play with that, right? Instead of taking what's you have that works well and continuing to break it.
I used to call that at Iris, we call it the dead bird moment. Like everyone's seen a picture of a cat that presents a dead bird on the doorstep. And like the cat is very proud of the dead bird, and the owner of the doorstep is like, that's disgusting, get that out of here. And that's kind of what I feel about those dead bird moments, is like the CEO's gone off and maybe gone to a conference or read a book or heard a podcast and then went and just augured on that for the weekend, and then come back with this dead bird to present the staff and say, hey, here's this great dead bird. And the staff's, we don't want that. And then you're like, right. Then you feel hurt and insulted, and you feel punished. I don't know, all those different things. But you're like, well, how can I get this thing better? And so I think it's interesting to have conversations around what is one of the most powerful statements that I began to understand and work towards is, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? So rather than giving direction, I'll often, because if you do it right, you're not the expert in everything. And
Correct.
You kind of articulate, here's a problem I'm trying to solve. And then you list it out. And then this is what I'm thinking. Do you have any other ideas? Can create a counteroffer dialogue where you begin to solve some of those problems. Because what we do know is that no one wants to go buy a tornado, right? Acquiring a tornado is a nightmare. And so you're not ready, they're not ready, it's never going to work. And so when you get in the systems that you need to put in place, those systems can really help you figure out what you shouldn't be doing. And I think that's the thing that we always mess up when we're trying to grow these businesses, and it is any business, is we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And that's part of the discipline of understanding how you're spending your time, is you begin to get really judicious about the things you should be doing. And sometimes, like, it's, for me, like, I'll be like, I don't know, like, it's about 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. I'm like, why am I doing this work? There's a better way to do this. And I'll package it up and put a system together. And I think what everyone should hear is that the ability to create these systems now is so available that you can get a VA, you can get an outsourced company, you can get, you should be doing your own bookkeeping, all that kind of stuff. Get someone to do it who is, no, you should not. Get someone to do the stuff so you can grow your number one thing that's most important to you, right? And that's, when we talk to customers right now, we ask them 2 questions. Are you looking, and you got to choose one. Are you looking to scale and grow, or are you looking to scale and optimize? So you're looking to scale and grow, meaning do you need more doors? Or scale and optimize, are you looking at more profit? Because you can't have both. It's tough. You can get to both, but you can't have both this quarter. And then we kind of start the conversation that way so that we can understand what priority they're trying to seek and how we can begin to position the solutions that we deliver. Because otherwise, if we're not trying to solve a problem for you, the vendors, the technology, the hires, all those people, it's just going to create more work for you as the owner and the property manager, and it's going to make your company less attractive to buy.
Right, for sure. Well, I think this would be a good segue into AI, because obviously, we've been, using VAs, remote team members, for several years. That's actually how I built my company, was on global talent.
Yep.
But with AI, it's just moving so incredibly fast. And if you want to tell us a little bit about what Vendoroo does, that would be awesome. And then maybe we can even dive a little bit deeper into some of the other things that are out there. So,
Vendoroo is an AI agent that sits in your PMS system, so you don't have to change your PMS, and it works with your existing systems, processes, and people, and takes out all the soul-sucking work. I'll leave it there. So triage, after hours, first touch with a resident, coordinating vendors, assigning W-2s, all of the invoice collection, all of that stuff times 1,000 times is how your day feels. All that is low-value work when it comes to creating a wealth within a property management company. So if you're a property manager, if you're a property management leader, and you get your PMs, and your PMs are doing all that stuff, none of that stuff drives the door count up. Nope. None of that stuff, all of that stuff, chews away from your profit. So you're allocating your, a PM could be $75,000 a year, $80,000 a year. If you're allocating that resource to do that low value work, you're actively robbing from your personal wealth creation, and you're actively robbing from your personal profit and loss statement. And guess what? If you've got a lower EBITDA, or profit and loss, and you're actively robbing from your door count creation, is that a fun company to buy?
No.
Not a chance, right? Not a chance. And so I think the opportunity for everybody in the property management space is you need to think about AI as a catalyst to drive your door count and drive your profitability. And those 2 things are always your priority. And the conventional approach to solving a problem might have been do it yourself, meaning my PM's just going to do more work, or I'm going to hire another PM or hire another coordinator, or I'm going to vend it out, right? Those 3 things are basically moving the dirty water around the floor, right, with the mop handle, because you're not really changing much. You're just having someone else do it for you. Because let us assure you that the bookkeeper, they're using AI. They're optimizing for what they need to do on a repeatable basis. So when you're looking at the work that needs to be done and the things that consume the amount of time in your people's, and I call it is the soul-sucking work.
It
Like,
is.
Nobody
100%.
says, hooray, I get to spend 8 hours in my PMS today. I can't wait for this day to start. Nobody ever said that, ever.
I get to answer over and over how to unclog a garbage disposal after I've argued with a tenant that no, it is not broken.
That's right.
I just need you to follow this process to
Yeah,
try.
yeah. There's an hour
And then
tape
back
it,
and forth.
line it out.
Yeah, back and forth. And then, they originally contact you when they're on a 15-minute break, and then you get back to them, and then they can't get back to you until they get off work. But now you're already off work, out of your PMS. And so then you come back into the morning, and then it's the same shit over
All the
and
time.
over.
Over
Nobody
again.
wants to live that life.
And I'd like everyone to understand that it feels like it's 1 minute of work, but it's actually 15 minutes of work.
Yeah.
So every single time your PM is interrupted from doing their core business of running a more profitable business or growing your account, that costs you 15 minutes. It doesn't cost you 2 minutes. It never costs you 1 minute. It never costs you 30 seconds. It costs you 15 minutes. And that distraction of 1/4 of an hour, right, prevents them from doing the work that they were doing, which is growing your business or making it more profitable. And that every single one of those interruptions, you see it when you talk to prospects. They're just like, oh my God, it keeps coming to me, or I've got to manage this. And I find it really hilarious that we've actually trained property managers and residents to delegate upwards. Meaning, if it's the garbage disposal problem, right, the resident's going to raise that to the PM. Now the PM raises that to the owner of the organization. And the owner of the organization, the PM organization, is the one that's fixing the resident's problem. Because we rewarded the resident for bringing up the issue and bringing that to the PM. And then we rewarded the PM to delegate that up to the property manager and owner. And that's not how it's supposed to work, right? It's supposed to be the other way around, where the PM has autonomy, or technology helps address that resident's issue before it gets up to everything should have to survive a filter to be able to get to the next level up. Because when it's talking to the owner, let's say you're running $1 million business, 2,000 hours a year, so every hour is worth $500, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a $20 problem. That's a bad use of time, money, resources. And so it's that kind of thinking and awareness that helps build businesses worth buying. And then also, other side of the coin, is it puts you in a position to buy businesses, to buy PMs. Because to your point earlier, if you can't, to your experience, if you're running a door-to-door business and you're responding to all the midnight calls, you are in no position to acquire another company. You're going to just waste your own money. And if you've got to borrow that money and maybe put a personal guarantee on it, you're absorbing an unnecessary amount of risk for you and your family. It's irresponsible. So if you want to have access, like the key to that door of wealth through property management, if you want to think that way, you got to start thinking about systems. And the best system right now is AI driven.
Right. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And what you guys do on the maintenance side is amazing. I've seen the back end. I've been invited to different things. It's really cool. And then within that, I mean, because there's some people that are starting to embrace it. Are you suggesting that people also go out and maybe use Cloud Co-work and just kind of do some other things? Or what do you think if you could give advice to a PM, a business owner who wants to grow?
I use Cloud Co-work all the time, right? And I'm sure you do as well. And there are things that you can begin to optimize that are low risk. It's kind of like that classic 2x2 of what's the cost of it and what's the risk of it, and just kind of match it out. There are certain things, and then what's the repeatability of it, I guess is the other one. There's certain things like email replies, right? I've got my Cloud Co-work. It drafts the email reply for me, but I still review it and send it out. I'm the human in loop, right?
Yeah.
But it's great. At the end of the day, at 4 p.m., I've got a half an hour block of time. I review all the emails that it created, and I send them out. And there's two things that happen when I do that. I'll go and update the prompt, so the prompt is tuned a little bit better for how I want, because the first email was never good. And that's just for email replies. So really low risk. Urgency is important because I want to get back to people as fast as possible. I have a certain way that I like to have my stuff structured from email reply. and it's great. It does that automatically. And so then I just tweak things a little bit. So this is again, Martel, 10% of ideation around what should be done, 80% horsepower in the AI space, and then 10% on my end of it to kind of make sure things go. And then ultimately I find things that I can just get out of the way. And then it's just like 10%, 90%. And I let that thing just run. But when you first set it up, you start kind of you got to learn a little bit along the way. Now in property management, that works great for certain things because they're really low risk. The problem with maintenance is that the person who is giving you the information is usually the least qualified person to assess the problem, being the resident, right?
Right.
They are talking about the food disposal doesn't work, my windows are crying, the bird's nest in the dryer vent exhaust, like all that sort of stuff like that. And they're giving you words that don't really make sense. And so often you have to have a lot of like context or understanding about that specific problem set to be able to make a predictable AI recommendation / decision. And that's part I think we're getting to, we do really well at Vendoroo, is like we begin to understand a higher degree of those problems because we just see so many of them, right? So like 1 million work orders with the system, 2 million plus audits. So not only have we like processed all this vertical data that relates to work orders in different systems in different parts of the country, we're able to kind of take that body knowledge and be really, really good at triage, coordination, and ultimately invoicing. And that's the thing that you just have to have the breadth of data to increase that confidence interval. Because even in my email example, like every single email I have to review, right?
Right.
I don't want to get there, but I got to start there. So in your property management business, and using the vendor as an example, is that how you want to, do you want to solve the hardest part first? Or is it better to take something that's a little lower risk? Maybe it's replying back to residents. Maybe it's just like automatically, acknowledging something or lease processing or rent collection or all that is a lot less variability to the data, a lot more predictability of what I'm going to get, your bank reconciliation, like all that stuff. Like maybe DIY that yourself. But as you're getting things that have a lot of unknown to it,
right,
then I would, obviously recommend to use professional services for that or a professional solution for that. But there are people that are out there creating Cloud Co-work for their maintenance triage, and I'm thrilled about it. I encourage it, but I do know that when you get to a certain limit, ultimately, just like my email story, you're going to be still having to do that look and that validation. And if you do want to get to kind of a lights out operation where no one's touching anything, and you decide that's where you want to compete, you're going to find that it's better to just have that, move to a company that does that for a living.
Yeah, well, I think you bring up an interesting point that maybe it hasn't been pointed out so much in the world is that, again, that almost, if you're starting to vibe code or whatever and create your own thing and you're taking that time, is that the best use of your time? Is that truly building a really good asset? Like, again, any way you slice or dice it, you're going to have to pay for the service, right? And I think a lot of times people forget that. They look at, oh, well, I'm just going to go do this. Okay, yeah, but when are you going to do it? Are you going to do it Monday through Friday, like from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., and you're going to miss out on your family time and maybe dinner or watching your kid's sport game or whatever because you're going to vibe code this? You're going to create your own solution versus going out and using somebody else's solution. When if you go do that, whether it's Vendoroo or another AI platform for leasing or whatever, now you could instead use like your brain or whatever for like even bigger things, right? Like to actually drive.
This is exactly what you're getting at is that if you start using it, so let's just assume, okay, we're working 48 hours a week this week, right?
Right.
And so 48 hours is consumed and you're all just kind of grinding it out. Well, it's really difficult to think about how to get wealthy when you're grinding out 48 hours a week.
Yep.
And so, and entrepreneurs, and guess what? If you own a property management company, like me, it took me 20 years to acknowledge it. I'm just telling you right now, you're an entrepreneur. You just don't know it yet. And if you're caught in the job part of it, you're missing the best part of an entrepreneurship. And so if you go become where you control your time, you have freedom from time, freedom from money, freedom from relationships, freedom from work. And so the goal of it all is that if you can figure out how to if you acknowledge you're an entrepreneur and that you're in control of you're an entrepreneur and you're wholly accountable for your outcome, right? Mm-hmm. No one else is going to help you out. In fact, the world's trying to prevent you from being successful, to be honest. And so if you understand those two truths, then, or accept those two truths, then you're going to realize that I need to do this a better way. Because what you need to create is you need to create a world where you're working 30 hours, and not because you're going to spend those time with the company, with your friends and family, et cetera. Because you need to think about how to do your business better. And so you got to figure out that work that's filling out that 48-hour-a-week bucket, that's got to get consolidated in a minimum, in a max 30. Hopefully you can get to like 24. And then you need to start thinking about how you can start growing your business to achieve more doors, more profit. Because that takes some thinking. And if you're just doing the same thing you're doing every single day, and I've been there, I've done this myself, you're just not going to get there. And there's a moment when you realize that, is this all worth it? And that's the part that's really difficult, especially in our business, because the is it all worth it thing doesn't stop Friday 5 p.m. Right. Guess what? 72% of work orders happen outside of work orders. So not only are you working 48 hours a week, but let's just tack on another 96 hours of coverage because you're the on-call person, because you trained your residents to escalate everything past your PMs right to you as a project management owner. You're going it's backwards. And so I would say like the opportunity to use AI, and especially things that can rob you of being able to grow your business, grow your doors, grow your profit, is things that you should really give that to somebody who's doing this as a business. Because no matter what you vibe code, you might be able to vibe code to 80%, maybe even vibe code to 83%, 84%. That 17% that you weren't able to vibe code through, that's the stuff that's going to create problems for your life and for your business. Because it's still not a touchdown if you're on the 13-yard line. It's still just like 87 yards of offense and energy, but no touchdown. And so when you got to think about how can I get across that goal line? How can I structure what I'm doing to get there? It's all about understanding what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And I really, obviously I've got conviction with Iris and now with Vendoroo that maintenance is something that should be done by people who are designing systems for the exceptions, because guess what? We saw one last week. There was a mouse in the food disposal, right? Did you plan for that? I know. Did you
live?
Live. Well,
oh, okay.
Well, it was live because it was not on. But there's a mouse in food disposal, right? Of course there was. There's food in there, right? And it scampered across the countertop when the food disposal tried to eat some food, right? And so that's scary and gross, but it wasn't part of your SOP. You didn't plan for that.
Right.
And you may never see that as a work order in 100,000 doors. But because we manage like that many doors, we see that sort of stuff and we think about that because we're the ones that caught that. And we had to deal with that and manage that, not the property management. But now we've kind of created a rule for it. Every property manager that we serve, they all benefit from that consolidated information because we understand it better. And the same goes for like your taxes and all that stuff. There's things that you can get distracted by. And I'm a full proponent that everyone should be vibe coding a little bit just to understand what's possible. But ultimately, that innovation, when it becomes something that you're going to rely and bank your business on, do you want to be a technology company or do you want to be a property management company? Because it's not all fun and games being a technology company if it's all homegrown technology. Because like eventually you're going to want to take a month off or you're going to want to take a break and someone's got to manage that. And now you're still managing that because technology lives 24/7. And like I've been on that end of the call my whole career where it's like something went wrong and now I got to fix it. And that's the path that I chose, but I'm not building a property management company. I'm not trying to grow doors or grow a property management profit. Right. So I think that's the thing that people got to realize is that learn how it works so you know how to buy it.
Right. 100%.
That's why people should be vibe coding. If you don't know how it works, you're vulnerable on how to buy it. But if you learn how it works, then you know how to buy it and maybe know what to buy.
Yep. And who to work with, right?
And who to work with.
Yep. Yeah. And really looking at the cost. The cost is always a bit beyond the actual cost. The cost is just everything. The money is not even the cost.
No, like a CTO, this is like in the mid tens, was talking to me about, we were doing a database recommendation, boring snoozer, but like there was a free solution out there called Linux, right? Mm-hmm. And Linux looks free on a licensing basis because it's open source, right? So it's free. But what does it cost you? Well, now you've got to maintain it. Now you got to patch it. Now you got to do all this stuff. And so you buy services to do that for you because no one wants to do that. So I went and bought this, free license, but now I got to buy all these services to be able to keep it up and running. That's the same thing. And then what's worse is you end up having to hire people to manage that custom solution, and now you're paying a salary plus 40% benefits because you chose the cheap license. So understand your total cost of ownership, number one, and then understand your total cost of distraction. Because if you're a property management company with 12 people or 15 people, and you got 2 people are just working on this code stuff, and they're working on it noon, morning, noon, and night because they love it, but eventually they're not going to love it anymore. Eventually they're going to be like tired of it, they're going to be bored of it, and then what do you do then? Because now you've got all of your infrastructures all knitted together based on this one solution. It doesn't work anymore. So it works, but it's not innovating. It's not moving forward. And so it's just to understand the business that you're in and figure out there is trade-offs you got to think about. Understand how to use vibe coding and code and cloud code, et cetera, so you know how to buy it and what to buy. Because you might find that there's things that you can have it do for you that are like really easy and low risk. And there are certain things that can create a bit of calamity if you had that, had that done with a grown solution.
Right. Yeah. I love all that for sure. I'm sure you and I could talk for hours and hours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, I create my own stuff, but this is a history repeating itself thing over again. If you grew up in the early 2000s, you at some point in time opened a spreadsheet that was like a monster, right? And you didn't know what to do with it or how to fix it, and it was wrong. And that person quit. And you're like, what do I do with this? And they're like, I don't know, start again. Because you can't pull it apart because it's like a plate of cold spaghetti. It's just going to break. And so, I built some of those. And so let's not do that over again. It takes a lot of work. And I do recommend that if you are thinking about it, learn a bit about it so you can be a good buyer. But there's certain things you should just, recognize what has a lot of data and variability to it and know that's the key thing for AI is how predictable is the data.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. So cool. Well, before we wrap up, I'd love to kind of get your hot takes on what do you think makes a really good company, like a property management company, sellable? And then if you were to go, or maybe even we could talk about like if you were going to go buy one today, because that will answer that question too. If you were going to go buy a property management company today, what would be like your top list of things that it should have? What should it look like?
Definitely, I would definitely look for doors per FTE. So how many doors you have per FTE is a matter of FTE per door, however you manage that, but whatever that ratio is. So how many people it takes to run that business on a door basis? One, because that tells you how much productivity. Every business has a per FTE business KPI, or EBITDA per product per FTE, whatever it is, something per people. It can feel like a people business, but that can be a really good waste of people's time. So a per person business, and that includes everybody. If you're using a vendor at 100% or 40 hours a week, that's an FTE. Number one. Number two, because that's representative of how productivity are, is it got to be your door growth. And so what's your sales pipeline look like? So what does that acquisition and sales pipeline look like? If your pipeline looks like a lot of it's happening to us, not we're making it happen, I would downgrade that acquisition multiple because it could be just like a lucky thing that happened. Maybe they absorbed something or something happened. They don't have a repeatable way of solving that revenue and door growth problem. So, I mean, like I said earlier, like it's about like show me you can grow doors and show me you can run the business properly. And the number one expense in all these businesses is payroll. So show me you're doing with less people. I would filter on that. And then if you can, because the things to get there for people and have door count requires discipline around your choices and your what you say no to.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love that. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like I said, I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours. I'll have to have you come back on.
I can't
maybe
wait.
we can dive. Yeah, maybe we can dive deeper next time into your experience with PE funds and VC backed, and those terms are thrown around in our property management world, and very different than.
Well, you'll find that prop tech companies will be VC backed, and you'll find that property management companies will be PE backed.
Right.
And they're both looking for one thing, right? A return on their investment. And you're going to get a lot, if you're a property management company and it's PE backed, you're going to get a lot of pressure for time to get a multiple in 4 to 5 year window. And then, you'll feel the same pressure on the VC side of things, but they're just looking at their numbers differently. You'll get a lot more attention in a PE firm, and in a VC firm, you'll get kind of monthly or quarterly, but it's going to be like it's sink or swim in VC. Whereas PE, they're going to be in your business.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a really good determination. And then, what I teach is the business owner to go out and acquire in their market, which really there's way more of that happening than there is PE and VC.
Oh, 100%.
right?
And in
It's just
fact,
not splashy. People don't talk about it.
no, they don't. And it is the way to create an exit for yourself, and it's a way to multiply your business. And so do it. It's a way to get into a lot of trouble. Like do it judiciously so that you're intentional about who you're buying, because you don't want to buy someone else's problem.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. There's all the tactical stuff in between. That's what
Yeah.
I teach, as well as the mindset piece of it. So
Yeah.
it's,
I mean, it's a discipline that has to be considered, because if you're going to go door to door on as you teach, there's just opportunities to capitalize on a situation.
yeah.
And you got to be able to
100%.
look, you got to know what those look like
Yeah.
and be ready.
Awesome. Yep. Absolutely. Well, this was good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, and tell us what you guys are working on this year. Anything you want to share about
Yeah.
Vendoroo or anything else?
Ton of folks at Vendoroo are going to be at Broker Owner in the next week here. I'm going to be in Dallas next week. Next week I'll be in Dallas. We're doing a big thing on Apartmentalize. I think what you're going to see from Vendoroo, what to expect from Vendoroo this year, is a lot more conversations around what's possible with like commercial AI or vertical AI. We're growing our partner set out, so we'll have more partners within the PMS's community. So we'll be more available for even more property managers that are out there. And I think you're going to find, like from us, what you should expect is a broader, deeper conversation on door growth and property manager profitability, and how that can affect your daily life, right? What we can do to improve the people that are doing your business and growing your business, and how we can make that a more predictable way to run the business. And all using AI, right, as the horsepower.
Yep. That's awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing all of you on the
Yeah.
road in the next few months, and of course, continuing the conversation online. And everyone can find you on LinkedIn. We'll put everything in the show notes as well. But,
Yeah, Guillermo Salazar on LinkedIn. There's only a couple of me. The only one that works for Vendoroo, so you can find me there, or Guillermo at Vendoroo.ai. Should be together.
awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you again for coming on. It was
Thanks for
awesome.
having me.
And
Thanks, Stacey.
have a wonderful week. All right.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Stacey Salyer Show. Here's the deal. You can read about acquisitions anywhere, but you can't learn acquisitions from someone who's done it the way I have. As a buyer, a seller, and from the corporate side, evaluating hundreds of companies. That's why I need you to subscribe and share this with someone in your network who needs to hear it. And if this episode landed, leave a 5-star review. It's how more PM owners find the only acquisition expertise in the space that comes from all sides of the table. And while you're at it, grab my acquisition readiness checklist on my website at staceysalyer.com. Then, when you're ready to move from growth thinking to growth building, explore the Built to Acquire program. Don't leave it on the table. See you on the next episode.